out of the wisdom teachings, the definition of a magician is someone who sees patterns where others cannot see them, and someone who creates patterns where they did not exist before. And that magic of creation, recognizing a pattern, which is really important in so many aspects of our lives, and then creating new patterns.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Welcome back to the show, my friend. This show is about helping you to be healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. Today, we are going to awaken so much of you that you are probably not consciously aware of, because today we are journeying into the land of the soul. It's been said that myths and fairy tales provide a cultural and societal backdrop that helps the human imagination narrate the meaning of life's events. It brings magic to the world of the mundane. Do you feel like kind of Groundhog Day? Every day is the same as yesterday and just feel kind of flat emotionally? I know all about that, trust me. And if we need to bring more mystery and magic and excitement and imagination to our lives, myth is a great vehicle to do so, because myths are stories, as Joseph Campbell says, that never happened but are happening all the time. Let's just take a pause on that for a minute. Just take a breath and take that into your body. Don't think about it. Just kind of feel into what he's saying there. Myths are stories that never happened, but are happening all the time. And we can interpret that as saying that these are stories, which are teaching tools that humanity has used forever to pass down knowledge and information and history, long before we ever had written words and books and God knows the internet. But people use stories to pass on wisdom and information, and again, values and teaching tools and cultures. The cool thing about myths are they transcend cultures. In fact, they transcend space and time, just like fairy tales. They can apply to any culture, any aspect of humanity, regardless of societal beliefs or geographical location or time period. Myths bring the magic and the mystery to the mundane of life, and they help us make sense of life and events. They help us find meaning. In fact, Carl Jung said, another one of his favorite quotes, that myths exist to bring us into a level of consciousness that is spiritual. So they help us bring the spiritual. And anytime you hear the word meaning, you know we're going to go into emotions and values. So here we go, right brain, my friend. We're taking a journey into the wonderful, underused, undervalued right brain world of our being, which, as you know, is half of who you are. But we all live so much in our left brain, you know, the analytical, the logical, the get things done, the being responsible, the think it through, the timeline, the goal setting, the progression, all valuable things. But like I always say, if we're not living in the right brain as well, and knowing the discretion, having the discretion to know when to be in either one, we're missing half of our potential. So I've been studying myths a long time. I actually have tapped into my own personal myth. It's said that we all have personal myths, as well as these cross-cultural myths that we all know about. Some of the ones that might be familiar to you, just so you know what the heck I'm talking about here, you've probably heard of the myth of the hero's journey, right? It's a famous myth. It's what all great movies and stories are about. Like Star Wars is the hero's journey. Lord of the Rings, the hero's journey. Sleeping Beauty, Wizard of Oz, they're Dorothy. They're all the hero's journey. And if you're interested more in that, you actually might want to check out my episode I did on the heroine's journey, which is a very cool thing I came across, talking about how the quote-unquote hero-heroine's journey is different for females than it is for males. And that's episode 46, by the way. It's a short episode, but it's really cool. It talks about how it's very different. And prominent Jungian analyst and psychiatrist Jean Shinoda Bolen, who is just a giant in the world of feminine archetypes and feminine psychology, and happened to be a guest on my show, by the way, in an absolutely amazing episode 83. You definitely want to check that out, because we talk about Aphrodite and archetypes and the goddesses and the mythical world as well. But one of my favorite quotes from her is, "Myths reveal intimate truths about ourselves and others." So they're teaching tools. They're the magical, mystical land of imagination and the subconscious, and they talk to us through symbols, and they help us navigate our lives. So very, very powerful. In today's episode, I have an expert for you on myths. We have Pamela Jaye Smith on the show. Pamela is a mythologist. She's also an author, an international consultant, and speaker, as well as an award-winning writer, producer, director with over 35 years in features, TV, music videos, commercials, documentaries, corporate and military films, games, web series, and XR. Pamela has 8 years of formal study in comparative mythicism. She's also a certified teacher of the mystery schools and taught conscious media and other courses at the Philosophical Research Society. She's founder of her own company called MythWorks, which is a cool name, isn't it? Is a double meaning there. And also co-founder of Mythic Millennium Project, affiliated with the United Nations. Pamela has authored 6 books, and she helps media makers and people enhance their stories using mythic themes, archetypes, and symbols. Pamela appears as a mythology expert on Ice Age, The Continental Drift, The Great Work, Forbidden Secrets, Microsoft's Age of Mythology game, and American Jedi. How cool is that? I mean, I was so excited to sit down with an expert on myths. Some of the things we talk about in today's episode include the interconnectedness of all things, the difference between myths and fairy tales. We talked about having a personal myth and how there are different mythical themes across cultures and values. We talk about the difference between religion and spirituality, the 5 initiations, how many prominent and well-known leaders or cultural influencers like Caesar Augustus, Plato, Walt Disney, they were all initiated in the mystery schools and therefore were exposed to the world of mythology. Pamela shares a really cool myth with us that I was not familiar with, and I've been studying myths a long time, the myth of Prometheus. Try to say that, Prometheus. He was one of the titans that brought fire to humanity. And it's a really cool story, and again, with a very important teaching lesson there. And we talk about the age of Aquarius and how this is what's going on, everybody. Is not just astrology, it's also astronomy, my friends. We're going through a major constellational shift that hasn't happened for 250 years, which happens to be when we signed the Declaration of Independence, by the way. So this is why heavy stuff is going down, okay? Sometimes it's a lot bigger picture than what you think. I have to remind myself of that all the time when I'm going through stuff. And we talk about a really cool concept that Pamela coined called recognition creates relationship. I love what she teaches us on that section. So enjoy this show. Just try to get out of your left brain and just let's take a journey into the land of the soul and the creative, the magical, the fairy tale world where unicorns are real and you have magical powers and anything can happen and animals talk to you and it's all so colorful and bright and sparkly. It might be a little scary at times, but ultimately you will triumph as the heroine in your own life. Let's now join, or hero, I should say, because I know we have men and women that listen to this show, but let's now join Pamela J. Smith. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. Today my guest is Pamela J. Smith. Pamela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be invited, and I look forward to our conversation.
Me too. I am super excited. I have been studying deeply this wonderful magical world of mythology. And of course, my show, Awakening Aphrodite, is all about mythology and archetypes. And boy, you are a mythologist. How would you describe to us what that is? You don't hear that every day in the elevator.
Well, I'm pleased to say that more and more people are becoming more and more familiar with mythology and the value that it offers today, and that it's not just, stuffy old stories of the Greeks and Romans or other people's religion, but it's valuable information that we can all use in our own lives. And my favorite definition of myths is that they are the stories we tell ourselves to explain the world around us and within us, and sometimes to justify the worlds we have created.
I love that definition. It is so great. And obviously you're very aware of Joseph Campbell, and I like his he's got a couple of definitions I've heard him say, as I'm sure you have too. And he says the myth is a story that never happened but is happening all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Isn't that cool?
It's very cool. It's those universal truths.
There you go.
And you can find it. And he was a wonderful comparative mythologist, and we can all learn so much from him.
Uh-huh.
And it ties in with something that's in the Ageless Wisdom teachings too about mythology. And it said that every good myth is true on at least 7 levels. Yes, from physiological to psychological, maybe geological, historical, astronomical, astrological, sociological. Just that's the power of myth, is the good myths. They hit so many different levels, and you can find meaning in them in different times of your life and different situations.
Well, I know Campbell refers to the 4 functions of myth, which I'm sure, I know it's like sociological, cosmic, it's whatever's like the planets and the physical, cosmetology.
Actually, I often do that
right?
too. Cosmetology is the study of beauty,
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's not right. What's the cosmos? The cosmos. The cosmos. Yeah.
Cosmologically. Yeah.
But the bottom line, as you're saying, and for the audience, the thing about myths is they transcend cultures, they transcend time, space, consciousness. It's not into linear time. And all cultures since the beginning of time that we know, they all had myths, and there's commonalities among all of them across continents. Like, how can that be? So there are universal truths of the human experience. Do you want to expand on that to help us understand in our, nuts and bolts, everyday, modern, fancy life? Like, what are we talking about with myths here? And what does it have to do with my life? Because people think myths are just like fairy tale, fake stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and you raise a good point. I'm going to start with your last comment first, and to say it's helpful to realize the distinction between myths and fairy tales.
Okay.
And folklore. So myths, as you've been saying, and as Campbell really points out very well, are universal across time and place. And you find the same themes coming up over and over again. Folklore and fairy tales typically are meant to pass on the cultural norms of a particular group.
Yeah.
So they're culture specific as opposed to universal.
Okay.
Which is not to say you can't, get something good out of it. And it's the way you train up your young people to fit into your system. You give them your local folklore. And so that differs a lot in different times and places. And you can find that even in, so much of the divisiveness today. You've got the different folklore stories of what's going on. And one side will have their version of it, and another side has their version of it, but you don't find a lot of the commonality. Myth raises us above the divisiveness and gives us universality.
I love that. Okay, I just grabbed that concept. That's awesome. So it's just so much bigger. It's like the umbrella of all of it. So in my understanding and my studies, in my own identification of my own personal myth, and that's actually one of my questions for you. Actually, why don't I start with that? Do you believe that we all have a personal myth?
Yes, and not just a personal myth. There will be different mythic themes and different archetypes or archepaths that you follow in the course of your life. So when you are a child, you may be following one particular myth, and then you get that lesson.
Okay.
And you, whether consciously or not, but you've kind of gotten that. And then you get into another myth and you live that myth for a while.
Oh.
And then you get into another mythic theme and you live that one. Some of them might be, for instance, let's say you're in middle school or high school and you get inspired by some particular cause to help others. So you plug into the myth of Prometheus, of stealing fire from heaven, of taking things that the elite are holding on to and don't want the other people to have, but at risk to yourself, you go out and become an activist. You go out and volunteer and you help other people, and then you are living that Prometheus myth. And lots and lots of others.
Of course, yeah. So you actually, one of your many functions, one of the many professional hats you wear, is to help storytellers and writers to create compelling stories. And you help train them to do that based on myths and archetypes and these universal kind of human experience roles. Those are my words, obviously. So do you find that, that's interesting how there's mythical themes in our lives. Are there some that are, okay, so if someone has a mythical theme in one stage of their life and then it changes to another mythical theme, are there some themes in all lives, though, that always happen? So say like the triple goddess, maiden, mother, crone type thing, like pretty much every woman in some capacity goes through those archetypal stages. Are myths the same way? Do we, even though we have mythical themes based on our individual lives and situations, are there some myths that are universally everybody at some point?
That is a very provocative question that can stir up a lot of conversations. Well asked. And I think that you would be fair enough to say that there are some that not everybody, but most people will meet up with. One of them is the wake-up call. Oh, by the way, backtrack just a moment. Joseph Campbell identified the hero's journey as the monomyth. But a few years after that, he said, oh, wait a minute, there are other mythic themes. It's not the only one.
Okay.
So, and then looping to the storytelling thing, a lot of people are having problems with their stories because they're trying to fit it into the hero's journey paradigm. And it doesn't fit because that's not the theme their story's on. And Chris Vogler, if you are not familiar with his book, The Writer's Journey, does a wonderful presentation of the hero's journey, calling on Campbell's work and applying it to storytelling. It's called The Writer's Journey. It's by Chris Vogler, and it's wonderful, and I highly recommend it. However, the hero's journey is not the only myth that we all find ourselves experiencing at other times and places, without our lives. well, within our lives rather. One of them is the wake-up call, where all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I'm this person instead of this other. Those are exemplified in stories like Arthur pulling the sword out of the stone.
Mm.
It's Moses discovering, oh wait, I'm not Egyptian, I'm an Israelite. It's Luke Skywalker realizing, oh wait, I'm not just this farm boy on a desert island, desert planet. I'm actually this. That wake-up call, who are you really? And how can you become more of that? So that's a very common one. Then a lot of people go through the search for the soulmate myth.
Okay.
And then if people experience loss, heartbreak, whatever, they may be going through the lost love rescued mythology, which is about Orpheus and Eurydice, and the lovers are separated and you have to go rescue them from hell. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. A lot of people these days, unfortunately, around the planet, are living the search for the promised land myth. And it's a hard one. And
Well,
unfortunately, oftentimes the leader of the search doesn't get to go into the promised land. So it's
kind of like Moses.
Yeah. And with so many displaced people, it's an unfortunate myth, that a mythic theme that a lot of people are experiencing these days.
Well, it ties into that idea of heaven is out there, afterlife. It's not here. Whereas, when you really study theology and whatnot, it's about the now. Like this is, bringing heaven to earth, and
Yes.
and like the Hopi prophecy. We are the people we've been waiting for. Like
Yes.
you're not going to be rescued. You got to. Life is about engaging your powers, the magician, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hello, I hope you're enjoying the show today. I wanted to jump in here to share with you something that has completely changed my life and is very important for you. Most people don't spend nearly enough time outside. And I know it's very difficult too. I have trouble spending enough time outside too. But we're designed to be outside, to be exposed to the full spectrum of natural light throughout the day. And we are just not getting enough. What does that look like? It looks like sleep problems, mood problems, detoxification problems, trouble losing weight, pain problems. Okay, the problems go on, and I've got a solution for you. Sauna space. I've been looking for a long time for a home sauna because sauna space not only combines the important benefits of heat therapy, but they also combine it with light therapy. And it's actually, the fancy word is called photobiomodulation, meaning your cells need light for nutrition, just like vitamins for your body. Sauna space is unique because they use infrared and near-infrared light, which is unlike the Finnish saunas that most of us think about when they think of a sauna, right? Like those wooden boxes where you go in and just sweat to death. Well, this is even better because, yes, you get the heat. And by the way, this heats up a lot faster. But you also get the photobiomodulation, the light benefits, which is going to help your mood. It's going to help detoxification. It's going to help your skin and collagen. It's anti-aging. It helps to reduce mold, fungus, viruses, so it helps your immune system. It's helped with pain relief, hair growth, and most importantly, sleep. Sauna space. I love this so much. I've been looking for a very long time for a home sauna, and this was well worth the wait. Well worth the wait. I love this company. So you can go ahead and check it out on my website on the recommended products tab and enter the coupon code FITAMYTV5. That's FITAMYTV5 at checkout and save 5%.
I think it's worth noting also the difference between spirituality and religion. because a lot of religions, and keeping in mind the origin of the word religion is from the Latin word religare, which means to bind. So religions have dogma. Typically, religions, there's a lot of good things to say about a number of religions, but typically there is a dogma that binds people into a pattern of behavior that serves for social control. And part of it is promising that on the other side, there will be rewards. On the other side, you won't have to suffer. But right now, you just accept it because we're not going to change society.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you'll be taken care of, but we're not going to do it for you now. Or, you know, all kinds of things you see in the more controlling religions, not spiritual practices, not spirituality, but to make that, and it's never a hard and fast dichotomy, but to make that awareness of the difference, and that spiritual systems typically are not binding, they're not rules-based, and it's about that interconnectivity that you were just talking about, and realizing it's all here now, and we can do something about it, as opposed to the separateness of religions, where one system has the truth and nobody else does.
I totally agree, first of all. Let me just play devil's advocate, because I can hear in my head someone that might be listening who considers themselves very religious, and they might say, well, you could call that discipline binding. You know, like there's discipline, and, you know, there's, you know, then we get into the whole, well, what is really unconditional love? I mean, if you know, love is love, right? You shouldn't have to, you know, but what would you say to someone saying, well, the binding part of religion is the discipline required, I guess, to do the right thing, or whatever it is they would say?
I think that's a fair point. And a lot of people, bless their hearts, haven't consciously started looking for higher answers. And that's very, very helpful. It's in the Ageless Wisdom, you learn about the 5 initiations. And there's the physical, the emotional, the mental. You begin to master those planes, the physical plane, where discipline is really important, and you learn how to control your physical body, whether it's the urges, the desires, doing the exercise, keeping your environment in order. Second initiation is about the emotions and your emotional body, and that's where you find a lot of the idealism and devotion to spirituality. And a lot of people start getting into, the Hindu term is the siddhi powers, SIDDHI. And that's the ESP and the automatic writing and premonitions and telepathy and
So channeling.
Channeling, absolutely. All those are second initiation experiences. And then third initiation is about developing a mental body. And that, of course, takes discipline as well. So there's a lot of value that can be found and utilized in religions that help you to be more focused and to build stamina of will and stamina of the feelings. So yes, absolutely.
Well, I think the very nature of, the very nature of an initiation is a trial. Like, you need to have some kind of challenge. Otherwise, what's the point, right? You have to rise to the occasion. In fact, in the mystery schools, as you know, it was always like a death experience. It might be emotional death, but right to the brink of death, because wasn't it Zarathustra who said, the person who fears dying is already dead? So they had to bring the person to the experience of death to kind of break through to that transcended level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without trials, there is no breakthrough. And there's a wonderful thing that a person I studied a lot of metaphysics with, Georgia Lambert, and she has a wonderful website and offers classes. I think it's called Lambert's Lodge, but Georgia Lambert said to go through the door, you have to become the door.
I love it. That's
Yeah,
great.
so that's part of the initiation process, is to become the door, to face that death, if you will, of whatever might be dying, and then you move on beyond that.
And that's the Shakti. That's the feminine, is the being. You become it. You merge with it. It's like you embody it. You are it. I love that. I've got a quote here for you on religion that I had on my notes. Religion is for those afraid of going to hell. Spirituality is for those who have been there, but soul making is for those who know the difference.
Oh, I like that so much.
Don't ask me who said it.
Well, they
I
were
don't
very
know.
wise.
I'm sorry. I don't know everybody, but I just, for some reason, I wrote that. I usually always credit a quote, but just somewhere in my travels. I think I actually got it from one of the episodes. I had a Jungian analyst on the show. And yeah, she was fantastic. Lorraine Newhart. She was a Jungian analyst. Fantastic. And I got it from that show. Episode 33. That was with her. Anyway, if anybody wants more on that quote. Okay, so I'm sorry. Now you had the 5 initiative. I interrupted you. Emotional, physical, mental.
Okay, then the 4th initiation is the crucifixion.
Okay.
And this is not necessarily Christian. You find gods on a cross in many different spiritual systems. Balder out of the Norse mythology, Tammuz out of the Mesopotamian. So it's a common thing. But the point of it is, nothing works anymore. It's the dark night of the soul. It's the descent into hell. It's you're often warned when you start the deeper metaphysics classes, studying the ancient wisdom into the mystery schools, you are warned that your life is going to fall apart. The more you learn about these things, the less what used to work for you still works for you. But you learn new ways. But it's a hard time. It's a hard passage.
It's the death of the ego. You have to just die unto yourself to be able to be reborn into the truth.
Yes.
You die on the cross. The cross is symbolic. Yeah, it's the ego death.
And symbolic of matter. The cross is that the higher alignment and the lower alignment where they meet.
Spirit and matter connect.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
And then the 5th, of course, is that awakening.
Oh, wait. The awakening is an actual initiation?
Yeah, it's often called it's up into the plane of inspiration, spirituality. It's where you get that, going back to that quote, where you have that wisdom to know the difference.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Enlightenment.
And obviously they're in chronological order, or maybe not, but I would think at least the awakening would be the last stage, right?
Yes, and here's something interesting. If you start thinking about this, you can notice it in your own life and lives of others. Sometimes people will go from working on first initiation and they'll skip second and they'll go up to the mental plane and they'll work on that. But they still have problems in the emotional plane because they haven't done second initiation yet. So you have to go back and pick up a stitch. You have to go back and clean that up. Or maybe you did emotional, you went to mental, but you've ignored your physical self.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you've gotten into some health problems, or you just want to feel better physically. Mm-hmm. And it is an important aspect. Mm-hmm. You can say, well, I'm all in the mental plane and I'm much more spiritual. I don't have to worry about the physical. It'll just take care of itself. No, you got to do the work. So it's not a cut and dried step by step going vertical. It's often the combination of, and sometimes you'll get into the 4th initiation phase straight out of, let's say, emotional, because things fall apart and you're in despair. And so you get into that dark night of the soul, and then you come back and start picking up, let's see, maybe I can learn something from this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
What can I learn? How can I apply it? How can I pass it on to others?
mm-hmm. So they're really all happening simultaneously, because just like parts of our being, we can't separate them. I think that's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you say. Ultimately,
Yes.
it's not a linear progression. There I go again with my left brain.
Well, see, you
uh,
got that working.
oh yeah, well that's true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
well as I'm working on not working on it.
Goodness.
Okay, so all right, so as far as the myths then, Pamela, maybe just, I don't want to say final thoughts, but just kind of to really land the plane for people, like, okay, but how do they really help me in my everyday life, enjoy my job, raise my kids properly, maybe get some enjoyment of life, have some fun, like, get sleep at night, like practically, like how can myths really help me?
They can show you patterns that work, and they can
Okay.
show you patterns that don't work.
Okay.
Many myths are cautionary tales,
Mm-hmm.
like the myth of King Midas, who wanted more. And he was granted the golden touch, and everything he touched turned to gold. And that was very successful, and he was loving it. But then he tried to eat an apple, and he couldn't because it turned to gold. And then he tried to embrace his daughter, and he turned her to gold. So getting what you think you want is not necessarily always a good idea.
Perfect. I love that. That just totally made sense to me. Yes. So looking for patterns there, and there you go. It's a perfect example of how they're a teaching mechanism.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
yeah, I forgot about that the Midas touch.
Yeah.
Um, what would be some others that come to mind? Some of the really more significant universal myths you think that are really impactful for people in this day and age?
Okay. I do think, considering that one of the major problems we have on the planet right now is the rich poor gap. And
Okay.
it's even
Yeah.
been identified as one of the 15 global challenges by the United Nations.
Okay.
And it's causing so many of the problems we have on ecological levels and economic levels, individuals suffering, individuals being oppressed. And once again, going back to Prometheus, I think that's a myth that more of us, if we embodied, could make even more of a difference on the quality of life on the planet and the quality of life of the planet. And that concept of not being satisfied with the separation between the gods, the elites, and the people. Now, this is not about fomenting revolution necessarily, but let's say evolution. But having those people who are part of the system see the needs of the people below, whether it's school kids in a district that doesn't have enough funding and people going in to help out with that, or whether it's medical services or political systems, whatever. Seeing a need, doing something that involves, and here's the kick about the Prometheus myth, you always got to pay a price. There's always a sacrifice for doing the right thing,
Mm.
unfortunately. And he did it anyway.
Can you please, for the audience, explain or tell us the story of the Prometheus myth?
Sure. In more detail, Prometheus was one of the Titans, one of the old gods of the Greek system. This was before the Olympians. And he looked down and saw that those humans down on Earth didn't have fire. And they were going about in the dark, and they had to eat everything raw. And it wasn't a great life. And he knew things were better, up in heaven. So he thought, maybe I could give fire to them. But it was against the laws of the Titans to bring anything to the humans. You couldn't help them out. It was sort of like an early version of the Prime Directive out of Star Trek.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, they're crossing the line when you interfere that much.
yes, yes. But Prometheus said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And it was a big no-no, and he knew that something might happen, but he decided to do it anyway. So he stole some fire from heaven and brought it down to humans. Now, typically in the story, you'll find that there are some humans who are suspicious and don't trust him. So he can't get everybody to go along with it, but many of them do. So pretty soon, humans have fires and they can have barbecues and they can stay up late at night around the campfire and tell stories and not be
Marshmallows.
cold. Absolutely. Prometheus gave us marshmallows.
Toasting the marshmallows, making s'mores.
Yes, yes. But needless to say, the Titans figured it out. And for punishment, he was chained to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains. And every day an eagle came down and pecked out his liver.
Every day.
Every single day.
Yeah, not just once. Yeah.
No. And every night it would grow back again.
Wow.
And the next day there would come the eagle, peck it back out again. Various versions of the story have him there forever, but in a version that I prefer, Hercules frees Prometheus. And, he's the hero who's a demigod. And he goes and chops off the chains and Prometheus gets free. And that's the happy ending for Prometheus. But the point being, sometimes to do the right thing involves a personal loss. Are you willing to have some self-sacrifice in order to help others? And remembering too, it's often in the Prometheus myth, it's one individual helping a group. And they are going against their group. This one person brings something to another group.
Well, that's the definition of a hero. You're going against the grain to do the right thing for others, basically. And it's not self-serving.
Right, you are. Right, you are.
Yeah, very important teaching point. That again, it's not for your own benefit; it's for the benefit of others. At some degree of detriment to yourself, unfortunately, but because of that, that's what makes it special. Otherwise, if you weren't sacrificing anything to give it up, big deal. It's like if I've got $1 gazillion and I give you 1 gazillion, or if I've got gazillions of dollars and what's the big deal? It's nothing to me. It's not a blip on my screen. I don't notice it. But so that's what gives it value, I think, is because it's a sacrifice.
Yes, and you see that recently in the example of Greta Thunberg, the young teenager who stood up and went out to bring more awareness and hopefully action about the climate crisis, and was vilified by many. She had to face a lot of criticism. Now, not being chained to a rock or anything, but it was not an easy road and still isn't for her, I'm sure, because what? Kids thinking they know how to run the world better than we do?
Well, unfortunately, in the current society, any kind of voicing opinion is just not tolerated if it's against what someone thinks themselves. There's no tolerance for differing opinions. There's no respect anymore for freedom of speech. It's like, if you don't think and act like me, I'm going to just rip you apart. And it's really kind of so many words for what it is, but obviously it's a big problem. We have to be able to respectfully disagree,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. To go from either or to both and.
There you go.
Compromise. Through
Very
compromise.
Nice. Yeah.
And seeing the other person's point. I am pleased to hear that schools are once again, some of them, starting to teach debate.
Nice.
Because formal debate is a way to do that. And you take a debate topic and you have to learn, study both sides of it and argue, present both sides of it.
Well, I would add that's brilliant, because that's a way of cultivating intelligence. Because it doesn't
Yes.
take any intelligence to just Twitter blast somebody with your Twitter name being Susie Twerk a lot, and you've got nobody following you and whatever, and you just anonymously blast somebody, and then that's it. It doesn't take any intelligence to, like you said, cultivate your point, be into
Mhm.
articulate it and substantiate it, and then it requires listening. It requires listening to the other person, and then respect. It's just a lot of things. So trust me, there's a lot of people I don't agree with right now, and unfortunately, our culture is very polarized by many very, very important issues. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I think it was J.P. Sears who says, I'm paraphrasing, but I might not agree with you, but I'll defend to the end your right to say what you're going to say. Because the
Oh,
point,
yeah.
the point is that it's about you having the right to be your own person and have your own beliefs. And I just defend that principle, but I can still disagree with you. you know.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of us over the last 5, 6 years in particular have, with some of our friends and relatives, just agreed to disagree
Yep.
and don't go into those discussions that may
Hmm.
bring up that kind of
That's me.
divisiveness.
Yes, I have that in my own family, and many families do, and that's been
Yeah.
unfortunate. But we've also learned now, 3 years after the beginning of all this, that there's just certain topics we will not talk about because we don't see eye to eye. But you know what? Love
Mhm.
is unconditional, and I love you anyway. And
That's great.
yeah,
That's
we all
great.
try to just go forward. And I know I'm not alone in that. Um, okay, so now let's go ahead, and I just would love for you to talk to us more about the value of the ageless wisdom. What do you mean by that, and what is that, and what do you have to teach us about that?
Um, the ageless wisdom is information and observations that have been made over thousands and thousands of years and that have been carried on in the teachings of the mystery schools, of the wisdom teachings. Most of the time, these things are not written down. You have to go and study with a teacher. You have to get into a system to begin to learn these. Whether it's the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece, the Egyptian mystery schools, and
Rosicrucianism?
yep,
Okay,
Masonry.
I'm
Yep.
studying that.
Hmm. Yeah, Rosicrucianism is really good.
Yeah. Oh, good.
It's one of those. It is one of those. You find some of it also in Sufism, the
Mm-hmm.
mystic arm of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
There's mystic Christianity. The Orphic religions are those that incorporate what you were talking about also about going through a death, because they're all about initiation.
Okay.
And you'll find these wisdoms showing up in so many different cultures, often in the shamanic traditions, that it's not limited necessarily just to a certain group of people, but it's still work to be taught those deeper secrets, if you will. And one more thing about the getting into it. It used to be said that you have to knock on the door 3 times before you're admitted. They want to be sure you really are serious about it before they start teaching you.
High bar of entry. Yep, that's
Yes.
key for anything
Yes.
of that nature. It's just even like getting a certification, like make it really, really hard because they want to weed out the gruff, They want
Yeah.
the elite. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's wonderful in this time is that it is so obvious that we need more of the wisdom teachings, the ageless wisdom out there. And so people studying it have been encouraged to go out and do something with it,
Good.
which is great. And
Yeah.
for instance, Freemasonry in many of the lodges do not keep everything secret. They still have a closed lodge, but they don't keep everything secret. They will they will talk about, they will do papers about the processes of going from common thinking to critical thinking to creative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They will talk about the various levels of philosophical masonry. And recently, I came across, just in doing some research for another project, there are at least half a dozen organizations out there that are providing leadership training to corporations and other organizations based on ancient wisdom.
Excellent.
Yeah. So this knowledge is getting out there, and some of my favorite sayings out of the Ageless Wisdom that just really work on an everyday basis is recognition creates relationship.
Wow.
And until you recognize somebody, you don't have a relationship with them until you see their point, until you see them. Remember how in Avatar, one of the main things there was when they would say, I see you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be acknowledged. And when you do that, you can begin to build a relationship instead of just the, well, you think like that, so I'm not going to have anything to do with you sort of thing. And another example of that is with the namaste greeting. I salute the divinity within you. So
Yes.
recognition creates relationship.
That reminds me of I can't recall the name of the tribe that's in Africa, and they have their saying of Nubutu. Nubutu, it means I see you. Like it's like namaste. The spirit in me acknowledges the spirit in you. And, you know, I say all the time, and you've heard in even in the little centering ritual I do at the beginning of the show, that my intention truly in my life, in my day, in my morning prayers is I want the people I interact with to feel like they're acknowledged, they're seen, they're appreciated, like that they exist. And I tell that to people sometimes just in everyday mundane life. Like you might go to the supermarket and, you know, you're at the checkout line and there's the person, the cashier, just, you know, ringing through, you know, hand over fist, all the items. And people are on their phone. They're not even looking at this human being for even a second. I mean, trust me, I'm not perfect. I've probably been on my phone sometimes too, whatever. But it's like the value of just seeing someone and having someone know, there's that simple hello, take 2 seconds, how you doing, whatever. That could be the only real human soul connection that person had all day, God forbid, maybe even all week. If they live alone or whatever. People are lonely, they're disconnected, and a lot of people feel invisible. And particularly, you know, elderly people. They feel like they're not, and people that were particularly attractive when they were younger, from what I've understood, that now are, you know, kind of at a different stage of life. They're used to getting all this attention, and now they find themselves walking down the street and it's like they don't even exist. And I guess what I'm getting at here on this long tirade is it's a personal thing for me to try, at the very least of my day, if I could just acknowledge someone and have them know that another human being really sees you and, like, I feel you, just even for a moment. I don't know, I think if everybody did that, the world might be a little more human, that's for sure.
I think you are absolutely right. And what you say is something that should be easy enough for all of us to do. And to just make that connection, like you say, even if it's just a hello.
Sure.
And do it once or do it 3 times when you're out. Just, you know, what you say, make a concerted effort to make that connection. It doesn't have to be hard to do. It could just be a
Exactly. It just
smile.
takes a second, you know, but it takes a certain amount of presence, and you got to get your face out of your phone for 5 seconds, you know, and just connect with people, because you're not going to find that connection on your phone. You're just not. You're not going to find it there. It's just, it defies all natural law. Anyway, sorry, went off on a tangent there. You know, it's interesting you're talking about the Freemasonry and that knowledge becoming more mainstream, which is so encouraging, because in my study of it, are you familiar with Mark Booth and
I don't believe so.
his work? He's got a fabulous book called Secret History of the World. It's just phenomenal. And
Ooh,
he talks all about the origins of the mystery schools and all that. And,
wow.
Masonry and all the stuff that we're talking about, this is all stuff that all great leaders and prominent people in all cultures were usually initiated in, like Caesar Augustus, Plato. I mean,
Uh-huh.
heck, Walt Disney. I mean, all these people. I mean, the Wizard of Oz. That whole, there's a myth for you.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously Star Wars, Sleeping Beauty, Red Riding Hood. All these things are mythical stories that of people that are showing an initiation journey of the human experience, which I think is incredible. That it's just it's like encoded. Like we don't realize we're participating in these myths, and that's really what these teaching stories are doing for us. But they're communicated and shared with intention, I guess is what I'm getting at. Because these creators are people that were trained in the mysteries to know the value of disseminating this information.
Absolutely right. And once you become more familiar with those, then you begin to see it in lots of other places too.
Yes, yes.
And one of my favorite places is in Frank Herbert's Dune series of
Ah,
novels.
yes. My friend got me watching that movie. That's a movie, Dune.
Well,
Yeah.
it was
Oh.
first a series of novels.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar. Okay, so the movie came
Okay.
after the books. Cool.
Yeah, well, there've been two movies and a TV series, and
Oh,
they're all worth seeing, some more than others, but the books are well worth reading. And they're dense, they're intense, they're rich, they're inspiring, and you learn so much about ancient things as well as, I mean, they're set in the future in, outer space. But the novels themselves, the first three in particular.
okay. I'm getting those. Well, you're triggering in me my all-time favorite, probably one of my most impactful books. And trust me, I have a gazillion books. It's a problem. Like I actually always say I'm on a book buying ban because I just literally, like I'm running out of places to stack my books and I can't read them in time, but I'm just a avid learner. But the book that truly changed my life, my biggest problem, like I mentioned earlier, being so left brain oriented, which is why I got Awakening Aphrodite as my main goal in the rest of my life, um, is that I'm trying to live more in my right brain and in the imagination world. And there's your magician, the imagination
Oh,
and
yes.
the realm of creativity and magic and myth and folklore and all that, the mystic. So one of my all-time favorite books ever is the Mists of Avalon. It changed my life. I literally couldn't put it down. I was obsessed with that book. I would dream about it. I would just like be working and I would just be like salivating, anticipating tonight I'm going to read some of my book. It triggered in me something, Pamela, of a past life, something. It was the beginning of me really awakening a part of me. So there you go. As far as like, it reminded me of that when you said Dune. I'm like, oh, I have a feeling it's going to be something like that. It's going to trigger something in my being.
It might well do. And I so agree with you about Mists of Avalon. It's
Right?
fabulous. Oh,
Epic,
yeah. Yeah. I
especially
read it,
for
I think,
women.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And I was
And
just thinking not long ago, it's probably time to read it again. Now that you've mentioned it.
it's just so, it's just, there's no words. And again, for me, it really triggered off a deep cellular memory and reawakening. And it was just beautiful. So I guess what I'm getting at is the myths are, for me, the world of mythology is okay, sure, unicorns and, gods and being pecked at by an eagle chained to a cliff every day, like all these things are kind of crazy in our everyday life. But if you can really wrap your brain and expand yourself from the mundane into that part of you that is that mystical creature that is just more than just your matter, more than just your matter physical body, that how can I live that myth? How can I live my personal myth? And I know for me personally, I want to live more in the world of imagination, because that's a world of magic and beauty and novelty and creation and excitement and fun. And, boredom and depression is about monotony. It's like tomorrow's going to be the same as today. Like that sucks. That's why I like to paint. I'm not the
Oh,
greatest. Yeah, I'm not
oh,
the greatest artist, but I try to really get my left brain out of the way, which is always saying, "Oh, that line's too small, or you didn't draw that horse right, or whatever," and just let myself be a channel from my soul to whatever it is. And a lot of times, as you know, in your work with symbology, my goodness, painting's all symbols. Like my intellectual brain might not know what the hell I just painted, but my soul knows. And you know why? Because when I look at my paintings, they make me feel better.
yes, yes.
And they often make others feel better too. People have commented like, I don't know what that is, but I love it. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
good. Me too.
Absolutely. There's a reason there's a whole field of art therapy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Help that. And something you said about the magic and all reminds me of
Mm-hmm.
the definition out of the wisdom teachings. The definition of a magician is someone who sees patterns where others cannot see them, and someone who creates patterns where they did not exist before. And that
Wow.
magic of creation, recognizing a pattern, which is really important in so many aspects of our lives, and then creating new patterns. So, see, you're doing that magician path thing.
That's cool. Yes, and I love how you have the magician as one of the archepaths in your work. I know one of your many pieces of work is the your company MythWorks has the archepaths, the 5 classic paths for the archetypes, and you have the magician as the first one, which I thought was really cool because I know, if I'm not mistaken, magician is the root is of that word is magi, which is power, right?
And wisdom.
Okay,
Yeah.
power and wisdom,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. Can you? I have to be honest. When you say magician finds patterns, can you kind of expand on that? Like, how does that exactly work? That being cultivating the magician in you is looking for patterns of something.
Okay. Um, People who are into systems theory and systems dynamics do this for a profession. They'll go into an organization, or say an organizer, a person who comes in to organize your books,
Okay.
your life. Okay. They come in and they see, what is the pattern here? So on just the personal level, it might be, well, look there, Amy's organized all of her books according to size and color, but not according to topic. Or maybe you've got them according to category, but it's kind of all jumbled up. So in their organizing, they might say, well, keep this category here of the books on magic, but put them according to size. And within the category of size, put them in some kind of a color scheme. A lot of people do this in their home closets,
Okay.
where you've got all your slacks, and then your skirts, and then your blouses,
Mm-hmm.
and they go by colors. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
going to pick something out, it's easier to see than just the jumble. This is really important in group dynamics. Now, I spent many years in the film business, and one of the things you have to be very good at is creating the pattern of what happens when.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing if you've got some people on your team, let's say one of the departments is typically ahead of things and another one is typically behind, where you're recognizing some patterns that could cause problems when you get into actual production. So you set a schedule that takes that into account, or you talk to them about changing it. It's also a very big deal in military aspects. You recognize a pattern that a people or an enemy force has, and you can take advantage of it. So it might be, oh gosh, let's see, from old warfare, used to be you'd go to war in the spring and summer, the late spring and summer, when the weather was good and you weren't having to be at home planting the crops, or in the fall harvesting the crops. So if you were going to go to war, you always did it in nice weather. Mm-hmm. So if you knew that about a people and you wanted to take advantage of that, you would set a new pattern and you'd go in and you'd attack when they're doing their planting and they don't have their weapons around. They're just out in the fields. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, that goes on to more, intelligence analysis and mm-hmm. strategy, operations, and tactics in warfare. So that magician aspect of pattern recognition and setting new patterns is really important there, and also for businesses. Yeah, assessing the market.
What I hear that saying too is that's the alchemy, that's the creation, the creative aspect of the magician is mm-hmm. using the forces to create something, which is kind of what I think of the magician, is bringing the etheric to the physical, the conversion.
Yes, and every arc path, like most things, has a spectrum. So you've also got the dark magicians who are working for the power of the dark side.
The polarity, always the dark and the light. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
And so you can create a pattern that obfuscates. You can create an illusion. You can, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Smoke and mirror. Look over there when it's really behind the curtain. Yeah. Well, that's going on right now too. People pointing over there when we should be looking over there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the wizard behind the curtain.
Oh yeah.
Creating the explosion over there when the real problem is on. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting. Hey, I'm here with my friend Ross Newkirk, and I know you've heard about his amazing core harmonizer because I talk about it all the time. And if you come over my house, you, like everyone else, will comment on, oh my God, what is that thing? It's so beautiful. I feel so calm and peaceful. Well, we're talking about crystals today and why they're important, why they're not all created the same. Ross, what did you want to share with us about the uniqueness of the Vogel cut crystal?
Well, the Vogel cut crystal is actually an amazing crystal in that its specific cut, it's a double terminated crystal pointed on both ends, and it allows for the amplification of thought and intention and energy. And we actually we first started utilizing the Vogel cut crystal in our technologies. Our nonprofit up in Western Massachusetts called the Lightfield Foundation has an amazing piece of technology in there that people lay in. That's a sphere, Merkaba, and a cube that you lay in, and we use Vogel cut crystals in that, as well as in the core harmonizer and our Cohere meditation mat and quantum flow unit. So we actually first started utilizing these crystals in our technologies, and then started offering them as well to people for their own work. Energy healers love using Vogel cut crystals, as they can be used for inputting energy into a client and situation, but also extracting as well. They actually resonate and vibrate with the frequency of water, and being that we're mostly made up of water, they're the wonderful tool for that.
There's such a precision cut. I can't believe they're handmade. They're just like mathematically, geometrically perfect, super powerful. That's why I'm so grateful that I found Ross and his team and his beautiful company that makes these tools available to us and at discount. You guys, you can get yours at a discount on my website under the recommended products page. Just go down, you'll see the Vogel cut crystals. You can learn all about them. And don't forget, check out episode 105 if you want to learn even more. But when you're checking out, enter discount code FITAMYTV10 and you will save 10%. Pamela, as we get toward the end here, I don't want you to leave without sharing with us your thoughts on this major shift we're going into the age of Aquarius in the fifth dimension. So any ideas you want to share with us on understanding some of the current situations going on and potential solutions and things that ways we can wrap our brain around, making substantial progress for the good?
Yeah, I think we really have to do that. And the more information we can get from whatever places, the better. Realizing now this is not just astrology, this is astronomy.
Okay.
We're moving from the age of Aquarius, from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And every astronomical age, as the sun moves through space, and you can see this reflected in a lot of the ancient architecture and ancient symbolism, like the Sphinx in Egypt, many say, was actually created like 10, 12,000 years ago, or even longer, but to refer to the age of Leo.
Well, isn't it lined up facing the east? So when the sun is in the astrological sign of Leo, something happens? I heard that.
Yeah, there's a very interesting series called Magical Egypt.
Cool.
Yeah, and they've got 6 CDs. I think it's all available for streaming now too, maybe. But Magical Egypt, and they talk a lot about that.
Love it.
So it is said that each age carries its own vibration, if you will. And we're moving out of the age of Pisces, which has been the devotion to the ideal. So you have found the rise of many of the religions, which are devoted to an ideal, their particular ideal. And then that's where you get a lot of the strife, because my ideal must be better than yours because I know the truth.
Dogmatic.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And not a lot of thinking, but a lot of feeling, a lot of devotion. Created a lot of great artwork, great music, conquered a lot of the world, a lot of strife. But as you move from one age to another, there's about a 250-year period of the phase change. So you've got the change started, maybe it's often said with the Industrial Revolution. And we've got 100 or so more years to go before the age of Pisces is phased out. It's the age of Aquarius. So taking a look at the conflicts today, a lot of it may be attributable to that phase change, where a lot of the people who do not want to change, who want to hold on to their ideals, are digging their heels in against change. Mm-hmm. And because they know it's intuitively, they know that it's going away and their way is being phased out, and they are fighting desperately to hang on. So there, I think you call in some physics too. Newton's third law is, for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. And we're seeing a lot of that today with the anti-woke and the censorship and resistance to the old forms. So seeing part of it is just the admixture and the turmoil and the chaos that happens when two big, huge thought forms, archetypes, myths, if you will, are shifting. And what's interesting too is to note that the age of Aquarius is the age of magic, magicians,
Yay.
all sorts of magical things. And you see a whole lot of, witches and vampires and zombies and all sorts of, dark magic stuff, as well as the other. And also note that in a number of the tarot decks and the illustrations of the Age of Aquarius, the entity is a hermaphrodite, both male and female.
Mm-hmm.
And notice how one of the things that's stirring up so much conflict these days is that shifting away from the bipolarity of sexuality, of gender, of sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And people saying, well, I don't know where I am on this scale. I don't know. That's so Aquarian. It's the hermaphrodite. It's the melding of the polarities. But it's supposed to be to our advantage.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Heros Gamos, ultimately that's the whole point, is the reunification of the two poles.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. So one can take hope, if one will, from the idea that as we move more and more into this new mindset, if you will, for humanity, there will be more coming together of what used to be very polarized situations. We're just in a rough spell right now.
Yeah.
Real rough spell.
Well, we're breaking through the chrysalis of the butterfly shell. It's not fun right now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's painful. True. It's pain. That's why they call it growing pains.
Oh,
yeah, it's painful. Yeah. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. Okay, so the Age of Aquarius, and potential solutions. Any thoughts on how navigating through all this, like staying centered in ourselves, or like any final thoughts on that?
Well, I go back to the recognition creates relationship, in trying to understand other people better without getting sucked into a maelstrom of conflict with them, but just trying to understand better. And then maybe keeping that understanding in mind in one's communications with them. Say, well, I know you've probably felt like this. I know you've probably done this, but what about this? Or just asking, what do you think about what I'm doing here, or what this organization is doing? And getting that recognition to be more two ways. There's also a thing to keep in mind. Unfortunately, it's been said that most people don't have thoughts. What they have are opinions about their emotions.
Wow. Or programming. Or programming from someone else that they're regurgitating.
Yes. So
not an original thought from themselves.
Yeah. So if by asking, and what, we all need this to learn how to think more and not just feel. But when engaging with other people, to ask the questions, pose the statements that will cause thought and not just emotional reactions. Because this is a quote from author Robert Anton Wilson, who said, "People with convictions are convicts. What you believe imprisons you."
Wow. I love a wordology like that. That's just so powerful. Brilliant. That's cool, Pamela. Okay, convicts, conviction. I love it. That's great. Amazing. Wow. Your life and work is just fascinating. Seriously, you, I just, like I read in the introduction, your experience and the breadth of your contribution is just very impressive. Just super grateful that you came on the show to share your wisdom with us. And where would you like to direct people? I know my audience is going to want to learn more, so please share websites, courses, any books. I know you've got 6 books and probably counting. Where would you like to direct people today?
Well, I think the main thing would be to go to PamelaJSmith.com, and there you can find the various books. You can find speaker topics, in case you have an event and need a speaker or presenter. And I do teach privately as well as groups. And there you can also find, under the products category, you can find the books, and you can find the podcasts and downloads from various seminars, and interviews like this will be up there soon.
Yay.
And then people can sign up for our newsletter that comes out, usually every other month, sometimes monthly, but at the left bottom of the page, you can sign up to be on our mailing list and start getting our newsletter that has all kinds of articles and links to other books and podcasts and coming events and such as that.
Okay, so mainly go to your website, and that's in the show notes, everybody. And Pamela J. Smith, J is Jaye, Jaye for Pamela J. Smith. It's not the letter J. But again, that's in the show notes. And wow. Well, everybody, if you want to support Pamela, please check it out. This work is very important. I feel like we all need to be living a little more, existing a little more in our left brain, our magician qualities, our ability to create and to find patterns and order, and our imagination, the exciting world of possibility, creativity, feeling, novelty. I mean, come on, sign me up for that. So if you want to support that work, please do check it out. And if you want to support me, the best way to do so is to subscribe and share the show and take it to the next level by leaving a review. It only takes like 5 minutes, but that way you'll be notified of new episodes. They come out every Tuesday and every other Friday in addition to every Tuesday. And it's a pleasure to be with you today. Pamela, any final words for the audience?
Okay. Thank you so much. It's so fun to talk about all of this wonderful, rich world of mythology and metaphysics. I think what I'd like to leave people with today is try as hard as we can, individually and with our groups, to move from common thinking to critical thinking, your left brain, to creative thinking, the combination of the left and right brain. So to be taking ourselves from common to critical to creative thinking. And then that realization that we are and we can move into a better age, a better way of living for more and more people, just by being very conscious of what's happening, holding that higher ideal in mind, and coming up with patterns that can better implement it. So become a magician, become a pattern creator for the world you want to see. As so many people say, be the change you want to see.
I love it. Well, God knows the world needs more magic. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and some creative solutions. Yeah, I love it. And it's a lot more fun that way too.
Yes, it really is. It truly is.
Yeah, and that's a big mission of my show, is to help people just be all of who they are, which is, you are a creative being. We all are. I mean, whether you think of yourself as it or not, and our imagination. I mean, everybody dreams. So there's your imagination in action. There's your subconscious. It's a part of who you are. And it's just like anything else. You can cultivate your relationship with it and use it to your advantage, understanding what your subconscious is trying to tell you in your dreams, because that's the world of imagination, just like the world of myth.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Pamela, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. I already can't wait to be with you again. And we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite. Bye-bye.
Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier,
and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also Fit Amy TV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.